So, this is Search and Rescue. It's like an epic, pretty much. It's up on my DeviantArt page that's still active on the, I'm not like super active on it anymore, but I wrote it back in high school, and it has lots of metaphors and symbolism, and one of my all-time favorites, and it has like, it's a poem with like all the like detail of a short story, but like none of the grammatical stuff. I will do some sort of movement with my hands or something when it's in different italics or bold. We'll see. So, Search and Rescue, and I probably wrote this, oh yeah, okay, I said, I posted it August 22nd, 2012. So, it was a 2012 project. Okay. Search and Rescue. The sounds of feet pounding into the dirt of the earth filled my ears. My breaths came out in quick puffs, with inhalations just as small. My eyes searched the woods around me for any sign of life, but like the rest of my group, I saw nothing. I continued down the path, passing the yellow ribbons tied to the trees as they marked the safe route. Something inside my belly ached to abandon the path, but I knew in my mind that doing so would put me and the others in too much danger. The cold Canadian air brushed past my lips again as I shifted the heavy flashlight in my gloved hands. The beams of light lit up each tree's branch, while the cloudy sky above attempted to part to let the moonlight lead the way. We were clocking in at our 5th hour of searching when John came up behind me and slapped a heavy hand over my right shoulder. Ben. His voice was hoarse and breathless, and he shook his head for a moment before he continued. Ben, you gotta rest. You've been at this for too long. I stared back at him in shock, my mouth opening and closing while my brain was trying to process his words. Finally, though, I regained my control. John, I can't stop. What if he's out there, somewhere in the woods, afraid and alone? I can't just stand here and do nothing. I have to find him. My eyes swept the woods in front of me quickly. I felt John's own eyes studying me closely. Ben, he began slowly, trying to gauge my response. I looked over at him. Who are you trying to find? I squinted at him, my brows coming together as my face expressed confusion. What do you mean, who are we looking for? If you don't know, why are you here? I shrugged his hand off my shoulder and it fell loosely to his side. I love this moment. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, if you don't know, why are you here? I shrugged his hand off my shoulder and it fell loosely to his side. You won't find him. John's eyes grew dark and his voice lowered to a grumble. You'll never find him. I blinked at him, fear suddenly gripping my body and rooting me to the cold, hard ground. I settled for shaking my head and rubbing my hand over my eyes. You're a little fucked, John, but it's okay. It's been one hell of a night. I tapped him on the shoulder, then turned back to the group. Come on, guys. Time to keep searching. Break's over. I chuckled under my breath until John spoke quietly. They can't hear you, Ben. I swallowed instantly and whipped my body around to glare at John. What do you mean? Why do you always do this, John? Why can't you just leave me there? John laughed. Oh, but Ben, what would be the fun in that? His eyes sparkled again, and he took off the gloves on his hands to reveal the damaged, bloody flesh beneath. My eyes widened in surprise, and I stumbled back, slipping over a nearby log. My ass fell hard on the ground, and my teeth jarred into each other, but I held in the whimper that threatened to be released. What's the matter, Ben? You act like you've never seen me before. John smiled widely, his teeth silver and cracked, glinting in the beams of the fallen flashlight. John, the syllables stuttered from my mouth as I couldn't control my body from shaking. You what, Ben? Don't tell me you're surprised again. How many times do we have to do this, Ben? Really? How many times? Can't get really into this. John began pacing about the trees, sometimes slamming his fists into the bark, or scratching long, jagged lines into them with the tips of his bloody nails. Why can't you accept this for what it is? Why do you need to keep searching? You're never gonna find him. You should just give up. I swallowed, silently staring up at John, not knowing what to say or what I should say to this creature before me. He continued on, as if I wasn't there. Ben, 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 Ben. He shook his head, swiping a hand over his face and causing a bright red streak to appear. To that. What do I have to do to you? Will you ever learn? He sighed, looking over to me, with eyes the color of rust. I really didn't want to resort to this, Ben, but if you're going to be this persistent... He brushed his tongue over one of his razor-sharp teeth, so that yellow venom oozed out. I scrambled to my feet at the sight. John, you can't, what? Wait, what? Why? All I want to do is find... John's face curled back in a snarl, and he was suddenly on me faster than I could have predicted. His nails dug into the thick fabric of my coat, and his hot, putrid breath puffed out over my face. You can't find him. I won't fucking let you. And before I could even blink, pain erupted from the side of my head, and when my fingers instantly went up to feel the wound, blood slid out from between them, coating them thick and sticky. This is such a long poem. This is such a long story. But it's so good. I love it. I haven't read this in like so long, so it's a time. I fell back onto the ground, landing roughly and gasping for air as the wind was knocked out of me. But all I could feel, it hurt so much, I couldn't process what was going on around me, which way was up or down, where the pain hurt, here or there, it was everywhere. Somewhere in the midst of the darkness, the blood and pain, I could hear the chuckling rumbles of the creature, could hear the faint murmuring of words, but it was all too muffled to make out completely. I felt wet leaves underneath my fingers, how they slipped and slid, like time was rushing past me, taunting me and threatening to pull me under into some kind of darkness. No, I couldn't let it take me. I couldn't lose this battle. John had to be defeated, and I had to find him. I had to. Coughing past the taste of dirt and iron, I scrambled up to my wobbly legs and looked out through the tears in my glassy eyes to try and find my way amongst the trees and brush. I couldn't tell where the creature was, where John was. I shook my head, which caused me to stumble from the dizziness. I didn't know why I was still referring to him as two different things. He was the same thing. He was John and a creature. I blinked past the tears again and half contemplated if I was making any sense at all. I settled for the fact that I wasn't. My fingers brushed against a rough patch of bark, and for whatever reason, I ended up holding on to it. I leaned into it, catching my breath as my heart was thudding vigorously in my chest. I wiped at my eyes, which made them sting more, but it still helped to clean them, if only slightly. As I was about to lift my leg forward, I heard a muffled snap behind me. Instantly, my mind screamed at me to run, but my already one-sense-deprived body froze. I could hear him again, that chuckling sound, the way it lashed at the air as each puff of warmth met the cold. I felt a long nail run down the side of my face. Ben. His voice was sugary sweet, like a cake that had been coated again and again with the frosty goodness, but you knew that once you took a bite it'd be absolutely disgusting. And that's what he was. Absolutely disgusting. I tried to shrink away from him, tried to get him off of my shoulder. His hand felt like a ton of bricks, and my bones felt like they were dipping from the pressure. But he kept me still, kept me where I was, like I was some kind of soldier. Ben. His voice gooed out again, making me shudder and arising a new sense of fear in me. Ben, why won't you come out and play? Why do you always run? I'm not that bad, am I? John's motives were dark in every way possible. He was toying with me, playing with his food. I opened my mouth to say something, to let out a strangled cry for help, but suddenly he had roughly pushed me to the ground, and through my tears and widening eyes, I saw him grin widely and lean down until his rock-solid knees were pinning down my shoulders. So good. It's so long, but it's so good. But, okay. Ben, did you really think I was going to let you find him? Did you really ever think that you could? His eyes sparkled, and he brought his face closer to mine. You're a fool, Ben. You were always a fool. And you were never any real threat. John laughed again, victory practically shining on his lips. He ran his tongue along his teeth once more, and another line of venom poked through. It's going to be a real pain in the ass to deal with your interference, Ben. So really, I'm just doing you a favor. I'm saving you the misery of failing while you're ahead, because after all, how are you going to find him if you can't see? This is like turning into one of my fanfics, honestly. Just repeating so I can't say I'm like repeating future fanfics because I think this came way before I did any fanfic stuff, but that's just interesting. Snarl pierced the air as the drop of venom fell from his teeth and penetrated my eye. At first, it was like nothing had happened, but then an itch spread across, followed soon by a blanket of heat and the feeling of my eye being consumed. I screamed in revoltingly high tones, most of which sounded like muffled whispers, while John laughed and shouted, the nails of his fingers dragging across the trees as he ran about in glee. You're a fool, Ben. You were always a coward, always a quitter, and always a loser. His words still found a way through, still echoed in my mind as I struggled to discover some open space available, oh, hold on, my timer went off. As I struggled to discover some open space available, some sense still present. You were destined for failure, for you were never any good. You have no talents, no friends, no job, just me. That's all that's here, Ben. Just you and me. Always and forever, Ben. Remember? Always and forever. Groans and hiccups pushed past my lips, breaths came in and out, and heartbeats rattled in my chest. No, I whispered, quietly, softly. No, that's not true. That is not true. Leaves met my open palms, and they wilted and crunched inside of them as my fingers curled into determined fists. You're alone, Ben. You have no power, no worth. You're alone, and you'll always be alone. You can't ever escape this, Ben. You can't ever escape yourself. John's laugh squirmed in the air, shaking and dancing as he moved about, his feet and arms coming across everything that was living, everything he could ever be. He was distracted, too busy taunting me, too busy playing, that he didn't even realize he had given me the chance to break away. And I took it. I stumbled upright and past the trees, trying ever so desperately to place distance between myself and John. I could feel him gaining on me, could feel his anger vibrating the air, sending shock waves that felt like earthquakes at me. I tripped over a branch, or maybe it was a rock, and landed roughly on my elbows. They screamed in agony, skin cells ripping out of their roots, as the world tilted and swam again. Ben, 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 where do you think you're going? John's feet crunched over a bone, the sickening crack piercing the air louder than it should have. I could hear his nails tearing apart the flesh of some innocent creature, a creature so unlike him he probably couldn't stand it. I crawled forward then, crawled over the ants and the maggots that had a special home in the dirt below. I could feel his footsteps as if I was the ground itself, could feel the manner in which he placed his boots, the temperature of material meeting earth. A slight wind picked up, bringing frosty cold air to my face, making me squint even though the feeling felt nice on my injured eye. Ben, where are you? His tone echoed what he really was, a disgustingly vile thing that had to be overcome. My fingers brushed across so many types of earth that when they hit something smooth, something large and wide, I had to open my eyes wider to clearly see what it was. There was a reflection within it, within this pearly piece of glass. There was a countertop, a cream-colored countertop with light gray walls and a nearby shower. I couldn't understand why this was relevant at all until I saw him. It was him. It was him. Ben! The scream erupted from my parched mouth and practically bounced right back at me. Ben, Ben, it's me, I'm here. I found you. Oh, sweet God, yes. I found you. Tears sprang to my eyes, the pain ebbing away softly as pure and utter joy resonated within me. I had done it. I had found him. I had found myself. Ben, Ben, come on, look, I'm here, Ben, I'm here, it's me. I stared at the reflection in confusion, my bloody fingers dragging upon the glass, leaving behind streaks that were disturbingly bright. I watched in complete horror as Ben, the real Ben, stared at himself in the mirror I was behind, because I was one of the two forces within him. And he looked at himself with hatred. With a sadness so deep, I felt myself being floored by its power. He ran a hand over one of his shoulders, over a small scar on his cheek, over his nose and his lips. He hated the person who was staring back at him, before he even knew who that person really was. Something inside of me shattered. Something that I had poured my all into came apart and sunk to my feet. He couldn't see me. After all of this chaos, he still couldn't see me. He couldn't see the positivity, the hope, the beauty of the world and his capabilities waiting for him because he couldn't see me. My mouth fell open in shock. Tears of worry and helplessness sprang up inside me as I heard the cackling laughter behind my back. Well, 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 Ben. Not what you thought, now is it? John clapped a hand onto a bare trunk, a smile playfully growing over his lips. I sprang to my feet, despite my unease, despite the fact that the world was spinning and I could barely hold it in place. I still knew a few things for certain. I could not let John win. I could not let myself give up. I could not have Ben give in to John's destructive powers, and nothing could stop me. Not even if I was blind or paralyzed, nothing was going to cause me to give up on Ben or stop searching because Ben was still searching and because I knew I could be the one to rescue him. Why don't you just give up, Ben? Why can't you just admit to defeat when it's staring you in the face? John stood there, 2 feet firmly lying upon the ground, teeth silver and sparkling, eyes glowing as rusty as ever. And I was the opponent, the one facing him on hell-bent legs that wavered, but a personality, soul, and mind that would not. This is not over, John. It's not over until one of us breaks through the glass and truly saves him. John gazed at me then, his head tilting to the side in what could only be pity. Ben, you'll never learn, will you? I stood up straighter at his words, my hands still holding tightly onto the ounce of hope left, the mirror. If I could be his hope, then I could be my own. I will do this, John. No matter what you say, I will be the one to save him. John tilted his head further at that, his smirk deepening as he chuckled softly. We'll see, Ben. We'll see. A small whirlwind of frigid air tumbled around me as John grabbed onto the back of my coat, yanking hard and swift, causing me to fall back roughly once more where a blast of pain overwhelmed me. I tried to blink it away, tried to squirm myself free, but his grip was tight and the pain was sending tidal waves throughout my body. Time for Benny Ben to go home now, John was saying, his voice light as if it floated in the air. The glass fell out of my grasp, wedging itself neatly between the old leaves and roots. No, Ben, hear me. I thrashed uselessly, my wrists crashing into trees and moss as John continued to drag me away. Aw, Benny Ben doesn't want to say goodbye. How sweet. John's voice was razor sharp, cutting into my skull and drilling its imprint onto my brain. No, Ben, look, it's me. See me, Ben, see me, Ben. My voice trailed off in the wind, hitting the stars and the clouds as they began to sprinkle back into the sky. John's voice never stopped speaking, not even when my voice grew hoarse and my screams echoed into nothingness. I could still hear John, could still feel John's grip on my back, John's stone-cold grip, and even as unconsciousness pulled me under, I pictured him. Pictured him standing in the bathroom, staring into the mirror with a hopeless look, a look I could do something about. Ben, don't give up. I'm coming. I'm here for you. I'm here. You are not alone. The sounds of feet pounding into the dirt of the earth filled my ears. My breath came out in quick puffs, with inhalations just as small. My eyes searched the woods around me for any sign of life. Dude, that was wild. I love that I was like, oh yeah, I'll do it in like parts. But I'm like, I got really into it. So that was my poem that I wrote when I was like, God, I don't know, like 17, 18? I don't know, hold on. I have a whole like explanation apparently in my description. Oh, look, okay, so I have, I've always tracked it, but I wrote this June 6th to 9th, 2011, June 13th, 2011, October 7th, 2011, March 2nd, 2012, and completely finished it May 22nd, 2012. So yeah, I was definitely like 18 or so. Yeah, 18. And then I edited it March 2nd, 2012, June 13th, 2012, and then throughout typing August 22nd, 2012, because I posted this in August 22nd, 2012. Yeah, that was search and rescue. Technically, I think I even saw in the description part that it was actually supposed to be search and rescue with an ampersand, but they didn't have the option for that on DeviantArt, so I had to do a plus sign, but that wasn't search and ampersand rescue. There's definitely like some parts that like could use some work. Some parts that could use some work, and like some parts that I maybe didn't have to totally spell it out. Like I think I spelled it out a little too much, that it it was like the whole, so essentially the whole like Ben and the other sort of search party, Ben and John, because John's our main character, well, Ben's our main character, and then like, but there's also John. Ben and John and Ben. The real Ben and like the other Ben, because the whole scene in the woods and the search and rescue is really just all playing out inside the real Ben's like mind, in a sense, like in his, you know, internally, his internal processes, in a sense. And so the Ben in John is like the creature. John represents all of like probably mental health, like depression and like self-hatred and like disorder and things, and a monster in a sense. And the other Ben is like the representation of hope and brightness and light and positivity and recovery in a sense too. And they're both at war with themselves, like Ben and John, to go, who's gonna get to the real Ben first, and like sort of like, you know, control how his life kind of goes from there, like who will win, like good versus evil in a sense. And the whole like thing with like John having like when he bit at Ben's ear and then like put a venom in his eyes, is the whole like see no evil, hear no evil, and then speak no evil, because even when Ben is trying to talk into the mirror to the real life Ben can't hear him because he's just having to figure out himself. And the other Ben is like, it's a search and rescue to find, you know, himself and find who he is and who he can be and all that potential in a sense. I can say I used to be way more creative back in like high school, middle school, and like even elementary school. Like I'm not that creative now, but it's interesting. So yeah, that was this video. I haven't read that since like, it's probably been like 10 years since I last read that poem-ish, short story poem thing. Prose but in a poem format. And by poem format I just mean stanzas. But it was interesting. I wanna get better at like maybe voice reading or voice acting or narrating and stuff. Like that'd be cool. That'd be a cool skill to like develop. I think I could have made it a little bit less, I mentioned this earlier, but I could have made it a little less obvious right away. Because I think right away I kind of was like, oh, it's Ben and Ben. Ben is searching for Ben and like all this kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure that all the other like people there are also probably Ben. like these other like search and rescue people, they're also Ben. But this is just like the true Ben kind of thing. So Ben was trying to find the real life Ben to tell him all these things. Yeah, I guess it is kind of like an angsty teen kind of thing. Angsty teen writer kind of thing. But I liked the idea behind the seeing, and when John like drips his venom into Ben's eye and then Ben can't really see, because that totally that's like pretty much the plot line to, what is it? Come to Pass for low-key centered Avengers fanfiction, except it's more like Odin blinds him kind of thing. But that's really interesting that I guess it's one of those things where like the art that I make today is so reminiscent of like the art that I made 10 years ago, and like it's just weird in a way. Like, I mean, it makes sense because it's me. Like, I'm still the same. Like, I've been through and I've done art, and like I'm the person who made it, and so it makes sense that it's a trope of mine, I guess. It's just interesting that like can take an idea from years ago and spin it into something else, or like have remnants of it from years prior. But I don't know, it's just interesting. Very interesting thing. Still writing like I'm in 2012. Which I guess makes sense because I'm stuck in like Avengers 2012, so in fanfiction world at least, so I guess it all makes sense. I feel like I think even a lot of my fanfiction is like that too, is like, because it's like the same like questions, same thoughts and considerations, just in different, like somewhat different like plot lines or somewhat different characters or things to that effect. So I don't know, it's interesting. I guess that's how you know it's written by me. Because it's the same thing over and over. But yeah. Okay, I am sufficiently tired, so I'm gonna go to sleep. And no idea when I'll get this video up, but thank you so much for listening and watching, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Any critiques or comments, feel free to leave them below in the comment description. I'm gonna try to film a few other videos, new videos soon. So, as always, stay safe. Much love and light to you, and I will see you in another video upload. And until then, have a good one, and find your inner Ben, because your inner self is in there. It might just be covered up by like symptoms or negativity and things to that effect, but that doesn't mean that just because you haven't found yourself yet, it doesn't mean that you never will. So, I'm so tired. Okay, bye.
Guiding like a lighthouse to